Is Governor DeSantis bad for Disney stock? Let's go ahead and look into this particular issue, and this is going to be a really good video for people that want to understand what could be some of the potential implications of this kind of, I don't know, say war to words between, the Republican Party of the state of Florida, Governor DeSantis, and Disney World, and is going back and forth. So as a person that is looking at Disney stock, maybe it's a person that's a shareholder of Disney stock, and there's a lot of really big pension funds that own Disney stock, what can be some of the implications on Disney and their business, which then will impact their stock, right? Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, what we're currently going through right now is that DeSantis is having like a war of words with Disney World over some of his, I would say proposed legislation. And one of the things is that we're seeing with DeSantis, and I don't want to sidetrack it, but I want people to kind of understand the political climate in the state of Florida, is that DeSantis is trying to position himself for a presidential run. And to do that, he's trying to raise his profile because he understands that people outside of the state of Florida need to know who I am, right? And to raise his profile, what he's doing is that he's taking a really strong public stance on specific legislation to try to raise his profile because he wants people to know who he is, because he kind of understands that we're in a different era of politics now to where the public kind of desires their politicians to have almost like a celebrity appeal. And therefore, he's gone down this path, and he has a right to do that. He has a right to run whatever kind of campaign he's running. He's also running for governor at the same time. But people in the state of Florida really believe that he's really looking at the White House. Therefore, he has to take this particular role, right? Well, he's pushing this particular legislation, and I don't know it word for word, but it's supposed to be designed to where school teachers between certain school ages don't have a right to introduce a specific type of curriculum based around sexuality, okay? That's a very generic explanation. And Disney was in opposition to that, okay? And we're going to kind of go into DeSantis and the Republican Party of the state of Florida, their pushback against Disney being in opposition to this particular proposed legislation, and what some of the implications can be to Disney's business activity, which then therefore can negatively impact their share price. Let's get into it. So what we're going to start with is videos kind of describing the issue so you can kind of get up to speed to it. Let's get into it.
Governor Ron DeSantis says he supports stripping Disney of its special status, which allows it to operate as an independent government around its theme park. Disney has had this status for 55 years, but it's coming under fire by the governor after the Walt Disney Company announced its goal to repeal the recent controversial Parental Rights and Education Bill, widely known as the Don't Say Gay bill. It was just signed into law by the governor on Monday.
My view is we should just treat everybody equally. We shouldn't let one company have their own set of rules compared to everybody else. And I think they've been able to sustain this because they've had a lot of clout for many, many decades. And I think now
the special status law was put in place back in 1967. The governor says it's up to the legislature to repeal it, but it wouldn't be up for consideration until the next legislative session next year.
Okay, so that's going to be the first video. And then now let's go into this next video.
It is Governor Ron DeSantis versus Disney. The feud started when that company spoke out about the so-called Don't Say Gay bill.
Now the governor is putting their power under the microscope. Fox 35's Valerie Boy is looking into the drama today.
Well, when you look at the signs outside of Disney, you think of the theme park and Mickey Mouse, but experts say it's more like a very large company that has its own town. But now the governor could have that district dissolved.
Back in 1967, when Disney was first buying land and getting ready to set up shop here in town, the legislature and the governor gave Disney the powers of self-government.
UCF political science professor Aubrey Jewett says Reedy Creek is a special district with its own city council. It consists of around 25,000 acres of land carved out from Orange and Osceola counties back in 1967.
It's really about Disney having control, not having to go ask Orange County or the city of Orlando for permission to do a lot of things. Instead, they basically can decide what they want to do.
But after Disney's CEO said it didn't agree with the governor's parental rights and education law, also known as the Don't Say Gay legislation, Republican House Rep Spencer Roach tweeted this post about repealing the Reedy Creek district and the governor giving it the thumbs up.
The legislature can certainly reevaluate that as a whole, but my view is we should just treat everybody equally. We shouldn't let one company have their own set of rules compared to everybody else.
My initial reaction was, what the heck? I was really shocked and surprised.
The governor thinks Reedy Creek has too much power.
I can tell you, I was shocked to see some of the stuff that's in there. They could do their own nuclear power plant.
It has crossed my mind that, maybe the legislature and the governor back in the 1960s went overboard a little bit.
But Senator Linda Stewart doubts the Reedy Creek Improvement District will ever be dissolved.
Disney's not going to stand by and let that happen without a fight. So you're looking at maybe a few years worth of lawsuits.
And Jewett says there's a small chance the Reedy Creek Improvement District could be repealed. He says around 50 retired and current Disney employees live here. Reedy Creek did not want to comment about the possible repeal. In Lake Buena Vista, Valerie Boy, Fox 35 News.
Thanks. Okay, so what we saw is that DeSantis is proposing stripping Disney of special privileges. And what are some of the special privileges? There's something in Orange County, I think it is in Orange County, called the Reedy Creek Improvement District. And what the Reedy Creek Improvement District is, it's an area in Orange and Osceola counties in which Disney has the ability to really somewhat govern themselves. Okay? And Disney developed this because what they wanted to do was have the ability to conduct business and not have to go through the bureaucracy of Orange and Osceola County, which is where their property lies. And here's a really quick article, so you can go directly to it on the internet. So this is anything they're trying to hide from anybody. People in Orange County have known about this forever because it's been around since 1967. And it was designed to support and administer certain aspects of economic development and tourism within the district boundaries. And I want to give you a heads up. It encompasses approximately 25,000 acres in Orange and Osceola counties, servicing 19 landowners, including Walt Disney, and its wholly owned affiliates. And let me get right here. It services one of the busiest places in America. So the district's boundary include 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, 1 sports complex, which is Wild Water Sports, 175 lanes of roadway, 65 miles of waterway. The cities of Bay Lake and Lake Buena Vista. Lake Buena Vista is a nice area. Science library, 40,000 hotel rooms, and 100 of restaurants and retail stores. So we got a 5-member board of supervisors elected by landowners that governs the districts. Now here's the key to that. Because Disney is the largest landowner, they dictate who's on the board of supervisors. The board of supervisors just rubber stamps everything Disney wants. That's how Disney gets what they want. And it was how Disney was able to turn 38.5 square miles of remote and largely uninhabited pasture and swampland into a tourist destination. And that's 100% correct. That land out there really wasn't being used. Nobody really wanted it. Disney came out and bought it, but it came with certain stipulations. Disney wanted to be able to dictate what went on in that particular area. And that's what people got to really understand. So that's the Reedy Creek, right, district. Now, here's another article based on that, okay? And this guy named Spencer Roach tweeted that, this is on March 30th, that he and other legislators were continuing to discuss repealing the special legislative act that created the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which means that they can no longer have that special ability to govern in that particular area and would have to follow probably under Orange County rules and regulations, okay? That's an issue because Disney has the ability to operate because of those particular rules. Okay. Now, the question you want to ask yourself is this. Let's say Disney now had to go through Orange County government to get what they want to get done. Well, that'd create a lot of lag for them. Now, they could do it, but it create a lot of lag. And they don't have to go through local planning commission, right, to build new structures or to pay governmental impact fees when the bill's new structure. So what it does is it streamlines their whole process. They're able to just push things through and get what they need. They also can collect taxes and issue bonds, right? So most importantly, Reedy Creek's ability to collect taxes and issue bonds. The district has a budget of more than $169 million. More than 90% comes from collection of property taxes on Disney real estate. So the Reedy Creek district has a budget of $169 million, and 90% comes from collection of property taxes from Disney real estate. And that's why Disney, right, has the ability to go in there and dictate what happens inside Reedy Creek's improvement district. Now, if DeSantis and the Republicans have the ability to repeal that, the question is, what is going to be the impact on Central Florida? Now, I want people to understand this because I'm from Florida and I'm also from Orlando, okay? There's a reason why Orlando is called, I'm sorry, let me start this over. There's a reason why, right, Orlando sits inside a place called Orange County. And the reason why is because in that area, it was just known for orange groves. All of that orange grove activity over time has left Disney, has left Orlando, as it's become more and more of a tourist area and has moved out to the West Coast. Therefore, the number one economy in Orlando, but really in Orange County, but also Osceola County, is tourism. If Disney picks up its footprint from that area because they just get tired of going back and forth with the Republicans in the state of Florida and they go anywhere else in the country, what is going to be the economic impact to that? Because they're really the largest single employer of people in the whole state of Florida, right? They employ more people as a single business than any other business in the state of Florida. And they pay a massive amount of property taxes. But they also employ a massive amount of people. And those people take that money, they go back into their local areas, which is not Reedy Creek. They go back into Orange and Osceola counties, and they spend that money in their local economy. Now, many of the people that DeSantis thinks that he's trying to protect with his legislation will be negatively impacted economically if Disney decides they no longer want to operate inside Orange County because they tired of going back and forth with the governor and the Republicans in the state of Florida. And therefore, you got to understand that as a shareholder is that if the Republicans in the state of Florida and DeSantis keep trying to wage this campaign against Disney, and they really try to make sure that they no longer have the ability to function in the Reedy Creek Improvement District the way that they're currently functioning, they could just say the hell with it, we're gone. And they can find another place in the country that's going to give them those same special privileges. And a lot of places will be willing to do that. Why? Because of the positive economic impact of a company like Disney. Now, the likelihood of them doing that is slim. Why? Because they would have to now go into that particular area and now develop all that infrastructure where they spent so much time in Central Florida entrenching themselves in that local economy. They have so much built out. They may not want to take the time to do that. However, if the Republican Party and DeSantis are going to be committed to waging a war against Disney, it may come to that. I don't think it's going to come to that because, like I said before, I think DeSantis is just trying to do something to raise his profile. Because if Disney is negatively impacted by anything that he does, it impacts the same people that he thinks his legislation is trying to help because so many people work for Disney. For people that aren't in the state of Florida, for people that, just do like social media reaction videos, I don't think you really understand how many people Disney employs, right? It's a lot of people, right? And I'm not talking about just Disney. I mean the resorts, because we talked about it's not just the theme park, it's also the resorts, right? And that's what you really have to understand is that Disney is a major employer. Therefore, anything that could be detrimental to Disney can also be detrimental to the local economy. That's why we saw during the pandemic, Disney started sending people home. Then you got a lot of people that can't pay their rent. They just can't pay it. Why? Because I don't have any money coming in from Disney. You got a lot of restaurants that don't get people to buy food there. Why? Because I don't have any money coming in from Disney. And so you have to really understand is that when a business puts that kind of economic footprint down in an area, and then they build up over time, they keep building up, they start employing more and more people. If they decide that they no longer have the will or desire to do that in that particular area, it'll collapse the economy. And Disney pulls out of Florida. Not only does it collapse Central Florida, it's going to be a negative detriment to the state because you're going to have all those thousands of people that don't have any work. And then that's going to bleed through the rest of the economy because you got businesses that are based on doing business with those thousands of people. So it sounds real good to do a reaction video. Sounds good to get your dopamine hit on YouTube. But from an economic standpoint, to me, it's not wise. So in looking at Disney stock, right, we want to ask ourselves, what could be the impact of the Republican Party and DeSantis trying to wage war against Disney, right? What could be the impact of that? Will they have a negative impact on Disney business activity, which will then bleed into their stock? Here's something else I want you to understand, because we're going to look at this from a larger context. DeSantis is playing a game, Elizabeth Warren does this, AOC does this. It's funny how we have politicians that's supposed to be on two different sides of an issue or have two different political ideologies, but they really play the same game. What we do is we look at corporations as this kind of like this dark figure in our economy. And in reality, corporations are legally people. That's in law. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So here's an article from NPR 2014, and we talks about when the corporations become people, examining the legal evolution. Are corporations people? The U.S. Supreme Court says they are, at least for some purposes, right? And over the past 4 years, the High Court has dramatically expanded corporate rights. Okay, but politicians understand that the average American doesn't even understand this. And so because corporations are people, corporations have the ability to exercise their political rights. They have the ability to be politically vocal about things. Therefore, Disney does not have to agree with any proposed legislation by DeSantis or the state of Florida or any political party. And they have a right to lobby against that particular legislation. And to me, it is incorrect for a politician to attack a corporation, right? Because they're in opposition to his political legislation. And I think we're going down a very dangerous road when we start thinking that's acceptable just because we agree with the legislation, right? I think that's very dangerous. The politics can't be to where if you don't agree with it, we will try to attack your business activity, because corporations are people. And why do I say corporations are people? Well, in Disney's sense, and every corporation is not publicly owned, but in Disney's example, they're a publicly owned company, which means what? They have shareholders. There's millions of people that own Disney stock. Disney is not just the CEO and the board of directors. Therefore, if DeSantis and the Republican Party of the state of Florida does something that's going to be negative to the business activity of Disney, which then therefore impacts their share price negatively, that impacts, right, the equity owners in Disney who are the shareholders. It also can impact their bondholders, right? Because Reedy Creek Improvement District doesn't just sell bonds. Disney as a corporation can sell bond. If revenues are impacted, it can impact Disney's ability to pay the yield on the bond. It also can impact their senior debt holders. These are all comprised of people, even if corporations bought those bonds, right? And that's what you have to understand. So what DeSantis and Republican Party have decided to do, a Republican Party of the state of Florida, is take Disney as a corporation and kind to objectify them as being just this corporate structure that's not comprised of people. But Disney's a publicly owned corporation, which means that they have individuals that own their shares, and they got big pension funds that own their shares also. But those pension funds are comprised of individual people. And that's what I want you to understand. Therefore, as we continue to observe this going back and forth, understand, if Disney says, you know what, the hell with it, man, let's just pull out of Florida, that's going to be detrimental. And so I want to understand something. To me, this is what DeSantis is doing. First, he's assuming this is not going to go too far. He's assuming this is just going to be a media thing. We're just going to play it out of the media. That's as far as it's going to go. But let's create a scenario where it goes farther than that. What this reminds me of was a coach that goes to a team, and his attitude is that I'm going to do whatever I got to do to win because I want to try to go into the professional league. So let's say you got a college coach. He says, I'm going to do whatever I got to do because I want to go pro. But the problem is that he breaks so many NCAA rules and regulations that on his way to the pros, the team gets suspended from like postseason play for like the next 5 years. So he goes to the pros because he won a lot, but then there's a negative impact to the team. If the Republican Party of the state of Florida decides that they're going to go to war with Disney, that's going to be a negative impact to them long term. Now, as DeSantis moves onto the White House, they're still going to be, the Republican Party of the state of Florida is still going to be in their same position. And they're still going to have to run candidates and the corporation or the people of Disney may not forget what they did, right? And so that's what I want people to kind of understand, is that when you have politicians that think that we can attack publicly owned companies, right, and forget about the fact that publicly owned companies that have shareholders are owned by individual people, and then we can create policy by stating that we're going to pull their ability to do business the way they've been doing business, you know, for the past 50, 60 years, which will be detrimental to their business activity, which will be detrimental to the individuals that own those stocks. And they think, well, because you agree with the proposed legislation, because, you know, we're going to identify them and label them as woke corporations, you're going to be on board with that. You got to ask yourself, is that something that you agree with as a shareholder? And so that's the difference between like this channel and a lot of the other channels, is that I want you to look at this from the perspective of a shareholder, not somebody that's just jumping on YouTube to get your dopamine hit from a reaction video, or not just because I agree with the policy, even though I don't live in the state of Florida, I've probably never even been to Disney, but because I agree with the policy, then I agree with what this guy's doing, because I can't understand the larger impact of what they're doing. When we have politicians that think that, you know, if you don't agree with our policy, we can attack your business, you got to kind of ask yourself where that's going as a shareholder. Because what if they don't agree with the policy of, what if they create policy and John Deere says, well, you know, we don't agree with your policy, we're going to lobby against it. Well, John Deere, we're going to pull this particular subsidy out. Or what if, you know, the meat packers, or what if the meat not the meat growers, the people that raise cattle, the cattlemen, right? They have their own lobby, and they have publicly owned companies that pack meat, and they have some issue with a certain policy. And the government says, well, you know what we'll do is we'll negatively impact your business activities because you're lobbying against our policy. Like, lobbying is legal. It's legal. It's not illegal. It's legal to lobby. It's legal to politically organize. It's legal to state publicly what your political beliefs are. All these things are legal. Therefore, when the governor of the state of Florida thinks that he can publicly state that, you know, he's tired of a company which is a person, which is comprised of people, he's tired of them lobbying against his policy. You got to kind of ask yourself where that's going. But see, if you are in favor of the policy, you don't see the bigger picture. And then how does that negatively impact the people that own shares in this company if he's going to do things that are going to be detrimental to their business activity? So when looking at Disney stock, what we want to ask ourselves is, if this thing continues to have legs, where do we think it's going? Will it impact it? Because Disney is not just a theme park company. Really, they're a resort company that has theme parks. They also got cruise lines. They also got a media division. Let's say this guy becomes president, and then he starts creating policy that could be detrimental to Disney in these other areas. These are the things you got to look at, right? And so that's going to be the end of this particular video. If you have any questions, hit me in the comments. David W. Williams, also known as Diamond Dave. I'll talk to you later.